The moment I heard the siren collapse into that sickening crunch, I knew something had gone terribly wrong. I ran outside, slipped on the wet porch, and there it was, my century-old oak tree, the one my property was practically built around, crushed across the roof of the sheriff's cruiser like the universe had decided to drop a punchline. And standing there dripping in rain and sawdust, frozen in disbelief, was the one person who had ordered that tree cut down just hours earlier, HOA President Deborah Frost. If karma had hands, they were wrapped around that steering wheel. I didn't have to say a single word. The scene was loud enough, sirens flickering under shattered branches, the smell of crushed metal, and Deborah's face pale like she'd just been caught stealing communion wine. And maybe the wildest part is, this wasn't even the beginning. It was just the moment our quiet neighborhood war turned into a full-blown saga. When I first moved to Oakview Hills, I actually thought I'd found peace. I'm a landscape architect. I spend my life planting things, fixing things, watching things grow. So when I saw that massive oak in the backyard, nearly a century old, anchoring the hillside like a quiet giant, I thought, yeah, this is home. Big mistake, apparently, because a few months later, HOA elected a woman who walked around like she'd been crowned dictator of suburbia. Her name was Deborah Frost, a Karen among Karens. She had blonde highlights too sharp for her age, pastel blazers that looked like Easter puked on corporate wear, and a voice that sounded like a smoke alarm arguing with itself. Within her first month, she banned basketball hoops, demanded all mailboxes, matched the approved shade of taupe, and sent my neighbor, a widow, an official warning because her wind chime was too cheerful. That should have been my red flag. But no, I stayed optimistic. Then one Tuesday morning, I found a violation notice taped to my door in Comic Sans. Comic Sans. It said my oak tree, my massive protected oak, was an unapproved vegetation structure that interfered with the neighborhood's visual uniformity. I laughed so hard I nearly pulled a muscle. But I walked across the street anyway, letter in hand, hoping this was just a misunderstanding. She was watering her petunias like she was tending the rose garden on the White House lawn. I said, "Hey, Deborah, looks like something got mixed up. This says my oak tree is a violation." She didn't even turn fully toward me, just angled her sunglasses like she was annoyed the peasantry dared speak. "Not a mix-up," she said. "Your tree breaks the uniform elevation line from the road." I blinked. "It's a tree, not a billboard." "It blocks the view of the Frost residence," she replied, pointing at her house like it was a national monument. "So you're planning to sell your house?" "That's not relevant." That was the moment I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about control. Her control. And she was going to push until something snapped. But she didn't expect I'd push back. I documented everything, pulled the county's environmental law, collected the original land survey. My oak was protected under municipal code long before Oakview Hills even existed. I left a neatly stapled packet in her mailbox like a polite middle finger. For a week she stayed quiet. I should have known it was the quiet before the storm. Then she posted a picture of my backyard on the HOA Facebook group with the caption, "Unsightly overgrowth threatening property values." The comments were full of people who had never stepped within 20 feet of my fence, claiming the tree was rotting or dangerous. It was pure suburban hysteria. But the part that got me. That night, I caught her creeping around my yard with a flashlight like she was a detective, and the tree was the prime suspect. The next morning, another notice. Final warning. And that's when I knew she was planning something. So I installed security cameras. One aimed straight at the oak one at the side yard. I even put up a little sign that said, "Smile Deborah. You're on camera. Petty yes. Necessary absolutely." 2 days later, I woke up to the hum of chainsaws. At first, I thought it was construction down the street. Then I realized it was too close. I ran to the window and my heart dropped into my shoes. 2 contractors in safety vests stood at the base of my tree, and Deborah, in her pink blazer like a deranged foreman, was pointing a clipboard at the trunk. I sprinted outside. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" One of the workers shrugged, looking genuinely confused. "Ma'am said this was HOA-approved removal, said it was hazardous." I turned on Deborah so fast I nearly slipped. "You don't have the authority to touch my property." "Oh, actually," she said like she was reciting scripture. "Section 5 allows emergency action for hazardous vegetation. That tree isn't hazardous." Her smirk could have soured milk. "Then sue me." So I hit record on my phone and filmed everything. I filmed her ordering the workers. I filmed the chainsaws biting into the trunk. I filmed every branch crashing to the ground like pieces of history being erased. I stood there shaking, angry, helpless, sick to my stomach, but quiet. Because evidence speaks louder than yelling. When the last limb fell, Deborah stepped back like she had slain a dragon. I walked right up to her and said, calm as ice, "You just broke county law." She dusted sawdust off her blazer. "No, Ethan. I saved the neighborhood." But she didn't save anything. She doomed her own house without even knowing it. That tree wasn't just shading the yard, it was holding up the entire slope. Without its roots, the earth would shift with the next heavy rain. And guess what was forecast for the weekend? Thunderstorms. That night the rain came hard. I barely slept. Every rumble of thunder felt like a countdown. The next morning, Sheriff Brad Hanlon showed up. And if there was anyone more blindly loyal to Deborah than her dog, it was him. He dismissed my concerns, downplayed the evidence, acted like the stump was no big deal. I started doubting myself. I wondered, am I overreacting? Am I wasting my time? The HOA hated me. The sheriff didn't believe me, and the slope behind Deborah's house was cracking like an eggshell. For a moment I considered giving up. Maybe I should just let it go. Let the HOA win, move on with my life. Who was I fighting for anyway? But then I saw the crack again, deeper than before, stretching toward her patio, like the earth itself was warning us both. And I realized I wasn't wrong. I was right. And truth doesn't stop being true just because some people pretend it isn't. So I pulled myself together and sent everything to the county environmental office. Thankfully, they listened. They sent an Inspector Mark Dawson who actually knew what he was looking at. When he saw the videos, the stump, the shifting soil, he shook his head. This wasn't just unauthorized. This was reckless. Deborah didn't like that. She stormed outside in her pink slippers, yelling that I'd manipulated footage, that she'd never ordered anything. Mark didn't even argue. He simply showed her a frame from my security camera, her pointing dramatically at the tree while the contractors cut it. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. And then it happened. A low groan rippled through the ground, a sound you feel in your teeth before you hear it. We all turned toward the slope. The half-trunk left from the removal began tilting forward, sliding down the muddy hill. I swear time slowed. It bounced once, twice, and then slammed directly onto Sheriff Brad's cruiser. Metal shrieked. Glass exploded. The siren wailed for half a second before dying, like even it was too shocked to function. Mud splashed across everyone, Mark, the contractors, Deborah. Silence fell over the yard. Rain hissing on steel. Deborah stumbling backward in the mud. Brad staring at his flattened car like he was watching his career get buried. I stepped forward, camera still recording, and said, "Guess the tree was hazardous after all." The look the sheriff gave me could have melted concrete. But it didn't matter. The truth had already crashed down literally right in front of him. Within an hour, deputies, county officials, neighbors, half the HOA board, they all gathered. Photos, statements, measurements, the works. And as the investigation deepened, so did the consequences. Turns out Deborah had been using HOA funds for personal projects, renovations, lawn service, even a hot tub. The board held an emergency session. Voices were raised, doors were slammed, and then they voted unanimously to remove her as HOA president. I didn't cheer, I didn't smile. But I won't lie, I felt something shift inside me, like a knot in my chest was finally starting to loosen. But Deborah wasn't done with me. She filed a counterclaim, defamation, emotional distress, property sabotage. Property sabotage. From the woman who ordered chainsaws onto my lawn. We went to court. I came with evidence, timelines, video, witness statements, survey documents. The judge watched the footage of her saying, "Then sue me," and raised an eyebrow so high it practically left the building. Deborah's lawyer tried blaming the contractors. The contractors blamed her. The county blamed her. The sheriff's insurance definitely blamed her. In less than 15 minutes, the judge ruled in my favor. Deborah was ordered to pay damages restitution, and she was barred from contacting me. That was it. That was the fall of Oakview Hill's self-appointed queen. There was no applause, no celebration. She just gathered her papers, shoulders, shaking sunglasses, hiding what little dignity she had left, and walked out of the courtroom. And that's where my story ends, not with victory, not with celebration, but with the truth finally standing on its own. Because power built on fear collapses the moment fear fades. And sometimes, all it takes is a fallen tree to show everyone what was rotten all along. Lesson: document everything, because receipts root deeper than lies.